From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hello. You have reached the Badass Counseling Show. My name is Sven Erlandson. I am the host of the Badass Counseling Show. And whether you are joining us from Lake Pontchartrain to Lake Travis, from Lake Winnibigoshish to Lake Mead, from the Long Island Sound to Lake Victoria over in Africa, wherever you are tuning in from, we are so glad to have you here. We are in a lightning round today. That means we're getting after it. Zippity zip, bang, bang, pow with the questions. I am joined in studio today, as per usual, with KC, the lovely and brilliant and easily the most creative person I know. KC over in the booth. Give us a wave, KC. I can see her. You can't. And then, of course, Rob the Rocket next to me. Rob is live with me. Those of you on TikTok and on Facebook cannot see him, but if you are catching us on YouTube, where we always keep the video rolling on Rob as well, and right behind him and will soon be up on the mixing board is Carly, the studio cat. She's taking a nap right now. But when you watch us on YouTube, you get the antics of Carly, the studio cat. And it sort of challenges me to stay focused on the question while Carly is walking around up here and purring and getting some love from Rob. So Rob, what do you say today?
She knows. When you say the lovely and talented Rob, it's the people on YouTube who know that you're not telling the truth exactly.
It is true.
I do have a comment here from a recent lightning round that was posted on YouTube. It says, how is it that every show you have that I'm able to check out is exactly what I am dealing with? It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, actually, I can pay extra to Amazon and to Google, and then they monitor your Amazon Alexa or your Hey Google, and they can read your brain waves, and then they feed the questions to me that you're struggling with, and then I answer them. See, it costs a little extra, but, it's worth it. So
don't scare the listeners.
I have an update. I have an update that I want to share with everyone. I had about a 2.5 hour long conversation with Chief Master Sergeant Jeremy Hardy last night, and he had just come out of surgery. They had removed the cancerous tumor out of his face. For those of you that follow our show, Rob just posted on Thursday our interview with Chief Hardy when he was still serving in the U.S. Air Force. He was the top-ranked Special Forces operator in the entire United States Air Force, and did 25 years of service. But in his service, at one point, he had taken a sniper bullet to the face, and they had never pulled it out because I guess it was too risky. Anyway, presumably it had become radioactive over the years, and so he has had cancer in his face, and he had this surgery yesterday where they took the actual cancer out, yet for some reason they don't take the bullet out ever. And but he is recovering nicely. If you have not listened to that episode, and it's one a week, it's a 3-parter of my interview with Chief Jeremy Hardy, you need to do that. The sound quality is bad, and I'm just going to tell you that right up front because he was in the middle of chemo, and I basically got him in between this and that, and so I apologize for the sound quality. That's my issue. That's my problem. But
Sven, on Apple Podcasts, you can follow along with a transcript. You can see the words as they're being spoken.
Fantastic.
That helps.
Fantastic. So if you follow our podcast on Apple Podcasts, you can get the CC of it, the closed captioning or transcription of it. But it is one of the most powerful interviews I've ever heard in my life. I happen to be in on it only because I'm the one firing him the questions, but it is one of the most powerful stories. We don't just talk about the war stuff. We talk about his relationship with his extraordinarily abusive mother, his relationship with his first wife. We talk about his being, on the street after he got out and, struggle with alcohol and addiction. And then, of course, the cancer that he has now, his life expectancy, etc. I cannot recommend highly enough, and it's a 3-parter. And you can go to YouTube, and it just dropped, and really powerful. Anyway, I had a long conversation with him last night, and he is recovering from the surgery in a lot of pain, but they're helping to control that. They're doing the best they can. But this just an extraordinary man. All right. That said, Rob, we have some work to do today, don't we?
As always.
All right. So for everyone tuning in, if you're out on the water today, whatever lake or river or ocean or sea that you are on, assuming the weather's good, I'm jealous. So enjoy it, and let's get her done. Here we go. Let's get to work. Here we go. New marriage, a strain. I put up with too much just to avoid confrontation, but can't stop. Wow. Okay. If it's already starting out and it's a strain, first of all, you're not alone. A new marriage being a strain, especially if there are kids involved, maybe you already had a child, or you're each bringing kids in, or you're pregnant already, that always adds a wrinkle. And this is why I'm a big fan of couples marrying or having children later. I really am. Just so you can settle the fuck down a bit. But if you're already having strain in the marriage, you have to fix it now. And you ask anyone on any of my comments that I do about relationships and marriage and shit like that, and they'll always say, especially the old dogs, some of us old guys or the older women they'll say, I spent 25 years in this relationship and I should have left after 2 years, or I knew the problems were there and I didn't do anything about it. So I'm not necessarily saying get out. What I'm saying is you got to fix that shit now, because this shit doesn't magically heal itself, people. Problems in relationships, problem in your own self, issues that you're dealing with, it's not going to magically go away. You can keep trying to stuff it down. That doesn't work. It doesn't work long term. It is not a long-term solution. And so many young kids, they don't get this because we're still socializing people that, you just got to toughen up and move forward. It's just the biggest crock of shit. Long term, it doesn't work. People pay me a lot of money to fix them because they're fucking 45 and they may have all the success in the world, but they're miserable inside, or they're 62 and they realize, man, all I've had is shit relationships. And we go deep into the stuff inside. We heal that, and it's like everything changes. And they're like, I feel like I just wasted the last 40 years of my life. It's like, you didn't waste it, all right? You're living, and that's okay. But you have an opportunity to live now. So back to your point, back to your question. I put up with too much just to avoid confrontation, but I can't stop. You have a massive amount of fear in you. If anyone avoiding confrontation, has probably been socialized that their voice doesn't matter. You've been conditioned to believe that as a child. And no doubt also you had a dominant force in your life growing up, likely a parent or an older sibling, maybe a younger sibling, even somebody had power over you and you were afraid of them. And the truth is, you won't stop avoiding confrontation. You won't stop doing that until you track back. It's origin stories, man. This is X-Men origin. You got to get into the origins to find out where the hell this messaging began. And you have to begin to bring that up, as well as all the feelings that go with it. And of course, that's the shitty, scary part, right? I don't want to go into my past, man. It'll overwhelm me. I'm scared. Exactly. Every single client ever doesn't want to go into their shit. That's why they've been stuffing it down in the first place for so long. So you got to bring that shit up, man. You got to bring it up. And yes, you're going to feel it, but you got to believe me when I tell you, as long as you don't just allow it up and just sit and feel it, but actually purge. Using journaling, using writing letters you don't send, using some of the techniques I teach in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, that if you actively, deliberately flush out the pain, it goes away very, very quickly. And let me tell you, that burden that you feel as it's coming out of you leads to a release as it's leaving you. So the very size of the burden of the pain is the size of the sense of relief upon getting it out of you. So that's what you got to do, my brother. And you say you're a Southern barber, so I'm going to assume you're a male. That may be a bit of a stretch. And it's not really. I know there are female barbers, but when you think barber, Rob, don't you normally think a guy?
Generally.
All right. At least for us old guys. Anyway, so yeah, you put up with too much and you're putting up with it. You're in terror. You are in absolute terror deep down inside. And until you go into those origin fears, you're just going to stay in this shit. And guess what, buddy? It's just going to keep getting worse. You got to. At some point, you have to go in, and again, that's what the book is for, to hold your fucking hand through that process so you can heal from all that shit and it doesn't keep fucking killing you. All right, next question. I don't remember my past. My brain blocked everything. Yes, it did. The brain's a funny little fucking thing, and it has this like inborn protective mechanism for the child. That a child's brain, if the trauma, if the pain gets too bad, it will begin to basically engage in some sort of selective amnesia. I swear to God, I've seen this a million times, that people either completely forget their past or they only remember bits and pieces. And parenthetically, when I was talking with Chief Hardy last night, he was telling me about the pain medication that he was given when going into surgery as an amnesiac, that it actually makes it so you don't remember the pain. Rob, have you ever heard of such a thing?
As a matter of fact, when I had my wisdom teeth pulled, they gave me a shot of Valium.
Yeah.
And so I was able to help the dentist and be conscious during the procedure, but afterwards, no memory.
That's insane.
It was a gift.
Okay, and so that's what we're talking about here, Katrina, that your brain has some natural function. The human brain does, that if a child's system is being too overloaded with pain, it starts to forget the memories. The other thing that I have seen in my work is that the child will begin to construct stories that save them or from the pain or contextualize the pain so that the pain feels like it's being overwhelmed by basically love. In other words, they'll start to say, well, it's for my own good, or I deserved it, or this was somehow a good thing. Okay, but you're struggling with, I don't remember my past, my brain blocked everything, implying, how the fuck do I heal it and find those origins if it's blocked everything? And as I always tell people, you start small and you start with yesterday. It's like, well, what the hell does that mean? If you're saying that you have blocked memories from, let's say, 45 years ago, when you were, 12 or, whatever, then those memories are blocked. And the way we begin to unblock them is start with what you do remember. Even if you remember nothing from your childhood, what do you remember from college? What do you remember from yesterday when you were at the grocer and you were going to grab the last few limes for your gin and tonics, and then somebody steps in front of you and steals the last limes, and all that's left are a couple of ratty ones next to it. And you're, now if you're a real lovely person, you think, oh, you take it. That's so great. But then you think, well, what the fuck am I going to put in my gin and tonic, right? But, if you're me, you're thinking to yourself, God damn it, you couldn't have left me one good one, so I get a little mad. So I have a memory from yesterday of somebody stealing my limes, and I'm a little bit pissed about that, just a teeny bit. Well, then guess what? If I write that out and journal that out, that's out of me. That's one. That's this tiny little pebble out of that bag of rocks on my back. And then maybe I go to 4 days ago when my boss, I felt like, gave me a good review, but I'm saddened because I don't get the raise or the bonus this year. Okay, even though, I've had good reviews, but I didn't hit all my numbers. And so I'm saddened. Well, then I've got a memory there and I've got feelings from that. So if I journal about that, or if I write a hate letter to the company that I do not send, writing letters that you don't send, very powerful, just like journaling. And now I've gotten another little rock, and you start small. And I know this may sound, oh, that's fucking tedious. I don't want to do all that work. Yeah, you do want to do all that work. And let me tell you why you want to do that work. Because the more you start taking out little pebbles, what you're fundamentally conveying to your soul is, I'm ready. I'm getting ready. I'm getting up to speed. It's like if you haven't been in the gym in 5 years and you go back in, you're not going to start by lifting hundreds of pounds. No, you start by lifting small. You acclimate your cartilage and your tendons and your joints and your muscles. You acclimate them, and then you begin to add on a little more. But you've got so many things that you do remember, Katrina, or Katana. I'm sorry, I've been mispronouncing your name, Katana. You've got so many things that you do remember, and those can be processed. And the more you get used to it, then you're going to start to have memories. Maybe it'll be a dream. Maybe something will remind you of something else, or a friend will say, hey, do you remember that time? Blah, blah, blah. And then your memories will start to come. And then you're already up to speed in how to, quote unquote, process them out of you. And you'll begin to have those other memories, and your soul will send them up, and you'll know what to do with it. Maybe you're talking it out with your therapist as well as you're journaling, whatever it is. But that's how we begin to tap into those lost memories from childhood. We start with what we do remember and generally start small. Now, I've got a question coming in from over here that I wanted to look at real quickly. It's on my Facebook feed, but Facebook just auto scrolls even if I try to stop it. And I know you guys hear me complain about this all the time. Okay, here we go. I like this one. And I'm taking it because of how she opens her question. She says, hello from Sweden. Now, of course, I have to answer that. My blood is 96% Swedish. I'm Swedish American, and proudly so. All 4 of my grandparents were Swedish. Yes, the Swedes came to America and kept inbreeding, and that's why I turned out this way. Ticks and all. All right, so we've got a question from Emina Holmgren, and she says, hello from Sweden. Is it normal and okay to feel a lot of empathy for my narcissistic boyfriend that I just broke up with? He has massive anger issues and explodes every other day without any specific reason. First of all, I'm sorry that you had to be in that relationship. I have had a few long-term relationships in my adulthood, and one in particular, I had to walk away from for a very similar reason. Wonderful person, and I was madly in love with her, and she was fucking beautiful and creative and gregarious and so smart and tough. And, I was crazy about her, but she was always starting fights. And so, yeah, I had to break it off. And it took me at least a year before I finally was able to let go of all of my feelings for her. And, but you're talking about something different. You're not talking about your feelings of love for your ex per se. You're talking about your feelings of empathy for your narcissistic boyfriend that you just broke up with. He has massive anger issues and explodes every other day without any specific reason. Yeah, he has a lot of pain inside of him. That anger is about pain. All right. And clearly your ex is not doing anything to go into the anger and go into the pain. I don't mean just control his anger. Controlling it is just another form of stuffing it down. But you have to go into the roots and get the initial root pains out, and then the anger just goes zoop, and it's gone. I swear to God. I mean, if you go into the root of anything, you can solve the actual problem rather than just solving the symptoms. It's like you can take cough medicine for your scratchy throat and, your fucking nasal congestion in your face, but that doesn't get rid of the fucking virus causing it. All right. And so what I'm talking about is going in and finding the viruses of this shit. Okay. So but your question is it normal and okay to feel a lot of empathy for my narcissistic boyfriend? Anybody who's coming out of any relationship is naturally going to feel still residue feelings in positive feelings for the person. I mean, unless it's just been horrific. But oftentimes, especially if it's been horrific, you're still feeling love, oddly enough. So to feel empathy for the person, yes, it is. It's very normal and it's very okay to still feel empathy for your narcissistic boyfriend who has hardcore banging fucking anger issues. Yes, it's very normal. And what you got to do, though, is not just feel them. Okay? Again, you guys have heard me say this 2 billion times. You have to purge those. You have to actively purge those. So in all honesty there, Amina, I would be, if I were in your shoes, I would be writing letters to your ex that you do not send. Tell him how much you fucking hate his anger, and his anger ruined our fucking relationship, and how his not going into his pain ruined our fucking relationship. And I didn't want to walk away from you, sweetheart. I loved you. Fucking hell. Why couldn't you just work on your shit so we could have had a great relationship? And I feel bad for you because I know that pain is inside of you. Flush all this out, Amina. You can totally fucking heal this thing. Absolutely. But yes, it's normal and it is okay. Rob, have you got something from YouTube for me?
I do. Jamie says, I'm sitting down with my 3 adult children today. What's your best advice on helping the energy from exploding?
Is it your energy you don't want to explode or their energy that you fear exploding? Because if it's your energy, well, then you kind of waited to the last minute. But you need to be flushing out. You should have been flushing out all of that shit coming into today. Anytime you're going into a high stress, high pressure situation, or a situation, people, where tempers might flare or people might go hot, everybody needs to do their shit of getting their emotions out before the meeting. Before the meeting. And if everybody isn't going to do it, then you do it. Keep yourself under control because you won't be able to control it and stay calm and stay focused on issues if your own energies are flaring up inside. It's the exact same reason why I tell parents that you got to be working on your own shit. I don't care what shit your kid is going through. You know, they're 13 and they don't have any friends, or they're 16 and they talk about suicide, or they're 18. They don't, they got to make this big college decision or whatever it is. If you're not working on your stuff, then their anxiety over their stuff is going to cause you inside of you to go, and you're not going to be able to fucking breathe. Because their anxiety is affecting you. It's making you afraid for what's going on with them. It's making you feel like a bad parent because my kid is having problems. It makes you feel angry at them for not solving their shit and dumping it on you. Whatever is going on inside of you is, you could say it's being triggered by the child, but it's not even that. It's because that almost implies that the child has some culpability in this situation. This is why we do our shit in advance of anything. And because nothing will fuck up your judgment more than feelings you haven't gotten out of you. Nothing's going to fuck you up more than that. Because all of those are going to start pinging and firing. All those synapses of fucking emotional energy are just going to go, electrical charges all over the place. So what people need to do, what you need to do is you need to go inside yourself and you need to flush out all of your shit before you have that meeting today. As much of your emotion, write letters to whoever's going to be in that meeting. Journal out, I'm so fucking afraid this is going to happen. I'm so mad at Tom because Tom never does shit when it comes to these meetings. And Susie, I love my daughter so much and she's so frail and she won't defend. All this stuff, you got to be flushing it out. In addition to that, going into this high-charged sit-down you're having with your adult kids, yeah, I got some tips for you. One, listen. Listen. Hear them. Don't be listening for facts. Don't get caught up in, minuscule details like, but wait, I didn't actually say that one time. I said this. It's a different word, and it means don't get caught up in all that shit. Hear them, because what they are expressing through their words is their pain. What they're expressing through their anger is their pain. The more you acknowledge their pain and hear them, remember the sage words of my mother, who did this shit for 65 years before passing away in her 90s. Children want to be heard, not fixed. They want their emotions to be felt, to be heard, to acknowledged. And don't apologize until you fully acknowledge. Don't be quick to get to solution steps and let's move on with it. Oh, I'm sorry about that. And don't make it about your own shit by saying, oh, I guess I'm a bad mom. That's you evading it. Stay in it. Allow them to say their shit. There's no need to fucking get into defending yourself, because what's gained? Your ego, your pride a little bit. Let them flush it out. What the hell do you care? Just listen and take it and allow it. Now, they can't be mean, but if they've got pains, let them get it out. Flush it out. And say to them, that I can see how that hurt. And that makes total sense. And I am sincerely sorry for that. What else? Tell me more. Tell me more. But it's being open and it's listening. This is how we heal our adult children, by hearing their shit. And don't defend, deflect, dodge, deny, or jump to a I'm sorry too quickly. They want the acknowledgement, because believe it or not, people, believe it or not, it doesn't matter the age. Children, I don't care if they're 65, I don't care if they're 80, still want a relationship with their parent. I literally had, of the 15 clients or whatever I had this week, I can recall off the top of my head, four of them who were still the topic this week, and where the others, it might have been 2 weeks ago or a week from now, but four of them this week talking about we're still wanting to heal with the parent, even though parent's a fucking horrible person, or maybe even the parent is dead. I had a 65-year-old guy today, successful guy, not today, but this week. That's exactly what he's still wanting that relationship with his deceased father. 65, folks, 65. All right. This shit, you think you're going on through life and you think it's not affecting you. It's affecting everything. And before I take the next one, though, we're going to take a quick break.
I had a really good start in my life, and I've been successful in my career, but I have to say I've learned so much and improved my outlook on life since I met Sven and picked up a copy of Badass Wisdom. With the daily meditations as journaling prompts, I've uncovered a lot of memories that weren't totally pleasant. With Sven's guidance, I've achieved some new understanding, and honestly, I feel lighter. Badass Wisdom is a great read. in nice small bites, and I think anyone can benefit from it. So go to badasscounseling.com and get the book or the audiobook. It could change your life.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
And we are back with a lightning round of the Badass Counseling Show. We are taking questions, your questions live. Our Sunday episodes are the tapings of these lightning rounds. And the Thursday episodes are counseling sessions, unless it is that one rare episode, the only time we ever did it, in interviewing Master Sergeant Jeremy Hardy, which you can get on our podcast site and on YouTube. All right. So we are taking questions here today. And next one up is, Kat says, if your spouse is accused of cheating again, how do you try to move past the repeat behavior? We're gonna just have a little bit of viewer input here. Anybody want to offer their insight to Kat? And Rob's going to monitor YouTube here. I'm going to monitor Facebook and TikTok. Anybody want to offer your input on Kat? This is like when, like fucking Freddie Mercury is up singing for Queen, and, it's one of his songs, and he puts out the microphone so the crowd can sing. I am putting out the microphone so the crowd can sing here. And I'm going to read Kat's question here. This is from Kat. And Kat, it's a great question. It's legit, and there are a lot of people in the position that you are in. A lot of people, believe it or not, tragically. But here it is, guys, and you go ahead and weigh in. Kat says, if your spouse is accused of cheating again, how do you try to move past the repeat behavior? All right. The text lines are open here. All right. And Yulia says, once a cheater, ... implying once a cheater, always a cheater. Jennifer says, behavior won't change till the root issue is brought up and dealt with. Rain Lover says, it's not going to change. Time to bounce. Bounce, baby, bounce. And all right, over here on Facebook, keep feeding them in, you guys. Becca says, regarding Kat's question of, how do you try to move through it? Becca says, you don't. Jill says, walk away. And Chrissy, great one, Chrissy. You get the gold star here. Question is, why are you ignoring the behavior? What are you afraid of? That's a great question, Chrissy. Nailed it. Now you're thinking. I like that. Koki Mama says, you heal from his damage to you and leave. I love the healing aspect there, Koki Mama. Hoppy Ness over on Facebook says, bye. Crystal Shaw says, it won't stop him from cheating. A leopard doesn't change its spots, as they say. And you just said, Crystal, well played. I think you may be getting the point here. Teach him how to treat you, Justine says. So Justine is offering maybe you stay in, but you got to teach him how to treat you. And I'm going to piggyback on your answer there, Justine, that if you're going to teach him how to treat you, that means you have to change. Because you've already told him, you've already expressed your pain, you've already expressed your sadness, I guarantee, and your anger over it, and he hasn't changed. That means you're going to have to change, which means you're going to have to stand up strong and not back down. And this is what I always tell people. If you're ever going back into a relationship or taking a cheater back or taking someone back who has treated you poorly, if you don't change, it doesn't mean shit if they haven't changed, because they will likely begin to slide back into the old behaviors, and you have to have changed so much that you stand up to them at every turn. You are retraining them. You have to stand up at every turn and not back down, which means you basically have to retrain yourself, which means you have to heal your own pain. You see how you have to change? And that's like, well, fuck, how do I do that? When do I do that? Exactly. This is what all these resources are for, to help you change. Because if you don't, they're going to slide right back into it. And you're going to go back in and go back in. I've seen it. One woman came to me after she had gone back in 13 times over the course of about 10 years. And she's like, how do I break this cycle, etc. Tammy even rings in on your question there. And Tammy says, X has come back 3 times. Should I try again? And I think you're probably going to get some of the same answers, Tammy. The bottom line is you can try as many times as you want. But at what point does a pattern become your reality? At what point do you acknowledge someone's pattern? And I like to give this example. When it comes to this idea of taking someone back or, working with someone who has hurt you multiple times, I like to, or especially when we're dealing with parent stuff from childhood and they're still treating you that way, I like to give this example. Okay, let's say you're dating someone new. All right, let's say you're a woman, you're dating someone new. We'll name the guy Paul. You're dating Paul, and Paul is a nice guy. He's consistent and, well-mannered, and he just shows up. He really shows up. He's really like present. And you're about 3 months into the relationship, and you're like driving to the grocery store one day, and you're like, this guy, he's really like steady Eddie. He is consistent and he's loving. And, we've had a few disagreements, and he always owns his share of it, but he doesn't let me off the hook for my share. It's like, I like this guy. And then you get down the road, like let's say 6 or 9 months, and you realize I'm kind of starting to really like this guy, like love. And it's like, and this guy loves me. It's like he shows up. He is consistent. And it's like, even when he makes mistakes, he owns his shit and he apologizes, and he's good to my cat. And, all these things, the little things and the big things. All right. And he ain't perfect, but he doesn't try to be, and he owns his shit. And you're starting to love him. You realize this guy kind of loves me. And then, but here, now about 2 years later, you're like, fuck, this guy is consistent. He's real. And it's just the same thing. He's owning his shit, and he's bringing the love. And you guys have had your flare-ups, but he's open to working them through. He admits and apologizes for any anger or whatever, or when he lets you down, and he also expects you to do the same, and he holds you to it. It's like, and you realize this guy really loves me. And then you're 4 years in, and you have a very similar experience. It's like, this guy, he's just consistent, and he loves me. He really does. At what point in that relationship would you, after 4 years of a guy being really consistently owning his shit, and any red flags that come up, you talk him out, and he owns his shit, and he also talks out his red flags with you, and you guys own your shit, and it's really like this. Would you, after 4 years of that sort of behavior from him, consistent, regularly, owning his shit, showing up, being a kind person, would you believe that Paul loved you? That's my question to you. If you had 4 years of someone consistently, regularly bringing the love in ways that felt right, and he talks out stuff and so forth, would you believe that person loves you? Because the simple fact of the matter is, whether it's 4 years or whether it's 6 years, whatever the number is, if you would believe it after 4 or 6 years, let's say, or 2 years, whatever your number is, then isn't it reasonable to assume that that person has a pattern of delivering love that can be counted on? Yeah. Then wouldn't it also be reasonable to assume that someone delivering a pattern of neglect or pain or hurting you over the course of 4 years, over the course of 8 years, over the course of 44 years, wouldn't it be reasonable to believe that pattern as well? But so many people don't want to believe the patterns that are right in front of their eyes. Your parent hasn't given a shit about you, or they've been using you for the 62 years of your fucking life, and yet you still don't want to believe it's true. You still want to believe there's hope. You don't want to acknowledge the pattern. You're in a relationship where someone has cheated on you twice or 4 times, and you don't want to believe the pattern. Why? Because you're terrified of being on your own. You're terrified of walking away, whatever it is. Or you're in a relationship where someone doesn't care about your feelings, and it's been going on now for years, but you stay because you keep hoping it'll change. But you've got a consistent pattern of 2 years or 4 years or 6 years, and you would believe it when it's love, but you don't want to believe it when it's shit. What the fuck? Why are you doing that to you? Why are you choosing to ignore a clear and consistent pattern when, if that pattern were love, you would believe it? But if it's hurtful and it's painful and it's rude and it's mean, you don't want to believe it. You want to know why, people? You want to know why? Do you want to know why you don't want to believe the negative pattern? It's always, 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 always fear. Fear of pain. Always. Whether it's pain of being alone, pain of all those fucking voices that rise up in you from your past when you are alone. Because if you have someone here loving you, oh, they love me, therefore I must be good. And all those voices from your past, they get muted. This person provides a buffer. Even if they're total shit to you, at least someone loves me, which is a counter message to the messages of I'm unlovable or I don't matter that you had been getting in your past. But when this person walks away and doesn't want you anymore, all those voices come roaring back up inside of your head. So you have to believe the patterns. I mean, you don't have to. You can choose to live in shit. But if you want to be happy and finally have peace, you have to be willing to go into the very shit that you fear the most. All right, next question.
Hey, Sven, in statistics class, we learned that the more times something happens in a row, the more likely it is to happen again.
Huh. Those fucking statistics people.
It's just math.
Oh, math. Well, and then Little Bonnie Softness, which is a cute little name here on TikTok. Little Bonnie Softness says, or, Sven, you've made marriage the idol and you're doing everything you can to hold it up. But even that, Bonnie, even that, you can say, well, it's because of this ideal. You've idolized this idea of marriage, but even that's driven by the fear. What happens if you walk away from the marriage? If you're idolizing the idea of marriage, sure. But then what happens if you break that idolization? What happens if you don't do that? There's some fear that is causing you also to idolize that. There's some fear causing you to idolize this idea of marriage and staying in it and so forth. There's some other fear. And folks, you guys have heard me say it before, and I'm going to say it till I die. Right? If you're ever trying to figure out why someone is doing something that doesn't make sense, or if you're ever trying to figure out why you yourself are doing something that you can't figure out, always, always, always ask the question, what is the primary fear driving the behavior? Then speculate the answers. Fucking write them down and go with the biggest, hairiest, scariest one. If you're trying to figure out why someone's doing something or something doesn't make sense, or you're trying to understand something someone else is doing or that you yourself are doing, ask yourself, what's the biggest fear driving the behavior? Write down the answers and go with the monster, because it's always that. It's always fear, people, always. And it's, of course, fear of pain. Fear of past pain, fear of present pain, or perceived future pain. All right, next question. Here we go. How can I help my sons not repeat dysfunctional relationships? I love that question. And if you're a parent, boy, that should be in your top 10 list of things you want. Basically, I don't want them repeating the shit that I've done, or even if they've had some dysfunctional relationships in their past, it would be great to help them break it so they can have great ones. Your children watched you. They didn't just listen to you, they watched you. Your patterns, they used. And they're learning from the primary people in their lives, usually mom and dad or whoever's raising them. So that means that becomes their normal. All right? Normal for how a man should act, normal for how a woman or a non-binary should act, normal. They're normalizing that. And guess what? They're then going to cleave to or create relationships that mirror that pattern. Why? Because it's comfortable. It's familiar. It's what they know. If you grew up in a home with a dominating or alcoholic father or an abusive mother, you are going to find, and you spent your life walking on eggshells, while your relationships may not start that way, they are going to devolve into that where you are walking on eggshells. You want to know why? Because you know how to love someone who's dominant. You know how to love someone who hurts you. You've been doing that your whole fucking life. You're going to choose that. If someone came along that didn't hurt you in some way, or wasn't rude to you, or didn't take you for granted or take advantage of you, if somebody came along like that, you would be bored, because you wouldn't have the highs and the lows and the fear. And it's the same reason why people go to horror movies. They love being scared. There is an exhilaration. In fact, they used to tell us back in the 80s, if you ever want to make a girl like you on the first date, take her to a horror movie. I'm like, no, I won't do that, just because I would be too scared. And then she'd say, this guy's a fucking wimp. I don't want to date him. But no, they say do it because there's actual chemical reaction that happens in the brain, endorphins or whatever, get triggered. And then she affixes that to you, the memory of you. Okay, so back to this. So you meet somebody in adulthood, you've had abuse, or you've been walking on eggshells your whole life, or you had a crazy parent or whatever, and you've been walking on eggshells, or you lived in fear your whole life. You are eventually going to create relationships like that. You're either going to be that person who is that way, making others walk on eggshells, or you're going to be the person who is walking on eggshells. Why? Because if somebody comes along who doesn't act that way, they'll be boring, or B, you won't trust them. How insane is that? You come along and meet someone who's actually kind and who's actually good to you, and you won't trust them because you'll be like, this isn't love. They want something. When is the other shoe going to fall? Right? Because that's what you're used to. Those highs of, oh, they love me today, and the lows of, they hate me today, or I've done something bad. So you're never going to be fully in the relationship because you're not going to let down your walls because you don't trust them. Or someone good is going to come along, but because you were raised in that sort of household, you were conditioned to believe that you're shit, you're unlovable, the real you doesn't matter, you're not wanted. So what you're going to do when you meet someone who's knocking on the walls that you've got around you to protect you, you're not going to open up and show them. Why? Because you're convinced that I suck so bad that if I show you who I really am, you're going to run away instantly. You're going to reject me. If you knew me, you wouldn't want me. Furthermore, I don't trust you if you like me, because who would want me? I swear to God, people, this is so fucking common in so many people. Swear to God, I guarantee right now, I'll bet 80% of the people watching or listening to this podcast right now are saying, yeah, I got some of that in me. Exactly. And we heal it by going into the origins in the past. And that's, of course, what I wrote, There's a Hole in My Love Cup for. And that's also what I wrote Badass Wisdom for, to help you guys finally fucking heal with this shit. But here's the deal. So, yeah, you asked the question, though, but how can I help my sons? This was the original question by Tracy. And I wanted to cover that stuff because that's sort of the setup. So you're saying, how can I help my sons not repeat dysfunctional relationships? You didn't indicate if the dysfunctional relationships were yours or theirs. But the truth is, if they were theirs, then I guarantee there's stuff that they got from you. Best thing you can do to help your kids heal is heal yourself. And you guys have heard me say it a million times. Nothing will transform your parenting more than healing your own childhood. Furthermore, in helping your own children heal from dysfunctional relationships, you have to understand what's driving the creation of dysfunctional relationships is the shit going on, the dysfunction going on inside of them. The negative messaging, the BS beliefs they were taught about themselves. It's not just their pain from their past. It's not just their fears that they picked up in their past, but it's also the BS beliefs they were taught about themselves, which is entirely what my book and my DIY courses and this podcast, it's all there for you. All the 900 plus videos that are free on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Facebook. They're all there to help you heal this shit. So I would get your sons hooked up to, watching these videos. But here's the other thing. I've got one more for you. One more tip in this, because this is a great question. I mean, really, what's bigger than that? Helping your sons, helping your daughters, helping your non-binary children to heal from their past. What's bigger than that? To heal from the very problems that you created and whoever else raised your children created. Yes, you did. And that step one is owning it. They got their shit from me. Because the truth is, if you're going to take some credit for their successes, maybe you got to take some credit for all the shit. And whether you take the credit or not, I don't give a shit. It comes back to parenting. All right. But I was going to say this. Go on all these platforms. Go to a video I reposted on December 25th of 2023. Go back and watch that. The title, I'm sitting outside. There's snow everywhere. I've got a big fucking bomber coat, whatever on. And the title of the video is something to the effect of 7 tips to help you heal your adult children. It's a repost from about a year prior to that. And it's a good video. And there are step-by-step how-tos for what you can do. On top of the biggest one is heal your own shit from your own childhood. But again, it's December 25th. So Christmas Day of 2023, I reposted it. And I'm sitting outside in the snow. All right, go back and watch that one. All right. Rob, have you got one for me over there?
I do, from YouTube, from Greek Girl in Love. She says, why is it so hard for me to develop discipline about the promises I make to myself? Like, don't yell, don't bring up the past, and don't get ugly in arguments.
All right. How come I don't have the discipline to do it? Because all of your original pain is still in you. That's why. And to not bring up past arguments. The mere fact that you would bring up past arguments says that those past arguments are still bugging you. So that means you have hurt and you likely have anger and sadness from past arguments. Therefore, what you're trying to do is this. What was her name? It was a cute name. What was it?
Greek Girl in Love.
Greek Girl in Love. I don't know. Cute. I like that. What you're trying to do, Greek Girl, is you're trying to change your behaviors. You're trying to have the discipline to change your behaviors. Nothing wrong with that. That's good motivation. The problem is, and this is a chapter in the book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. One of the chapters I title, Trying to Change Behaviors Never Changes Behaviors Long Term. Hear me on that. Trying to change behaviors never changes behaviors long term. And I know you're thinking, this guy's a fucking idiot. What does that even mean? God, he's an idiot. And I am an idiot, but I'm very good at it. So let me just continue to be an idiot. If you're just trying to change behaviors, it's not going to stick until you drill down to the core beliefs driving the behaviors. The behavior is going to revert back. Why? Because the core belief is still in place. So the core belief has to change. And the pain that is coming out of that core beliefs like my voice doesn't matter. I'm not important. But also the pains that are down there from what was done to you in the last arguments or 2 years ago when you did this or that. You have to get all of that out of you. But more importantly, or additionally, those core beliefs have to change. And that only happens by healing the very things that created those core beliefs. And here's the thing about core beliefs. You can't see them. Most people can't see their own core beliefs. And I know you're thinking, okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's something I can't see that's affecting my life negatively, and I need to get it out of me. Tell me, genius, how do I get it out of me if I can't see it? Yeah, that's what I wrote the book for. And that's what all these questions are. See, here's how we do it. By asking the right questions, we begin to dig into things and we begin to understand them. And if we're open to seeing them in different light, we begin to see them differently. So one of those, let me give you for example, okay? One of the 4 examples that I use with a lot of clients is I have to tell them, people who, we dig down and we discover that they believe they're unlovable. And Chrissy, yes, the book it's not on Audible, but it's available as audiobook on badasscounseling.com. So when most kids are growing up, they're not even aware of it, but inside of them is the belief mom and dad are good, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, or whoever the fuck's raising you, grandma and Uncle Steve are raising me because my parents died. Whoever is raising you is good and they love me. Child comes out of the womb. That is just a child's natural state. They are good and they love me. Therefore, if I'm not getting love, if little me, Susie, isn't getting love, because those guys love me and they're good. So if I'm not getting love from them, something must be wrong with me. I'm the problem. People, you would be stunned. The percentage of clients, of people I interact with online, the DMs, the voice messages, the texts, the calls, the comments, at the root of like fucking 99% of the people I interact with, when we drill down, that's the core belief. That's one of the core beliefs. Mom and dad are good and they love me. Therefore, if I'm not getting love, something is wrong with me. But as I dig further into their life, I have all clients write an autobiography for me. And as I dig in, I start pulling at little threads. And what we begin to see is mom and dad weren't actually good parents, perhaps, or one of them wasn't. Or maybe they didn't love me. Or maybe my mom has resented me since the day she discovered she was pregnant because she knew she wouldn't be able to pursue her dreams. Or maybe dad never wanted a child, and so he's always disliked me. Whatever it is, before you were even born, or the day you were born, or whatever it was, you were actually not loved. But the child believes they were. And now you're 49, and it's like, you're still believing something is wrong with you. But as we go back further into that past, we begin to discover that, holy fuck, they were actually horseshit parents. If I really look, no, I had great parents, Sven. I had great parents. Really? Write that autobiography for me. Let me do what I do, and then we'll see. Or no, my parents love me. Really? Really? Which is why you're in a therapist's office now at, age 37. Right. And the more we dig in, what we discover then is the original premise of the theory that mom and dad love me and they are good. We begin to realize that one or both of those premises is not true. Furthermore, what we discover is, I asked them the question. I said, do you have kids, or do you have children in your life that maybe it's a little Billy next door, and sometimes you throw the baseball with him and his dad, and he's a sweet kid, or somebody at your church, children at your church, whatever it is. And I'll ask the question, as you think about that child of yours, or as you think about those kids at your church that are, let's just randomly say 8-year-olds, is there anything an 8-year-old could do, anything that an 8-year-old could do that would justify them not getting love? Is there anything an 8-year-old could do, or a 6-year-old, or a 10-year-old could do to justify them feeling like, being taught to feel like they're a problem, like they're no good, like they're unlovable? Is there anything a child, well, no, the obvious answer is no. It's a fucking kid. Kids are rambunctious. Kids are playful. Kids get grumpy when they don't have enough sleep. Kids steal the extra cookie. And that's what kids do. Kids are lovable. They're sweet. They're full of laughter. They're full of anger when they don't get their way. And that's normal. But there's nothing a child could do that would justify them being taught that they're unlovable. Therefore, if a child is 6 or 8 or 12 or 14 and they are feeling and have been feeling unloved, the problem ain't the fucking child. The problem is the original premise that mom and dad love me and mom and dad are good. Wait a minute. That means the reason I'm not getting love is because of them. It's not because of me. I'm not the problem. There's nothing wrong with me. Exactly. And there never was. Do you guys remember that movie, Rob? And sometimes I'll have clients do this in their homework. Go back and watch the movie Good Will Hunting.
You often refer to it. It's a great example.
It's the best example. I mean, it's just brilliant. That scene that he's in with Robin Williams. You know, that climactic scene, the climax of the fucking movie. I mean, there's some brilliant lines in that fucking movie. Like the one where Ben Affleck says, brother, I love you, but if you're still working here in 30 years, I'll fucking kill you. I'll fucking kill you. I said, you got to take it. You know, I love that scene. But no, the climactic scene is when Robin Williams looks at him and he says, it's not your fault. And he's stepping towards him. And yeah, I know. The Matt Damon character says. And then he says, no, it's not your fault. And Matt Damon's character is getting really uncomfortable. He says, Sean, no, not from you, man. Don't, Sean. And he steps in, Robin Williams steps in again and says, it's not your fault. And then the Matt Damon character breaks down. Because it's that myth that in that moment that's being destroyed. It's the myth, mom and dad good, mom and dad love me, therefore if I'm not getting love, I'm bad. That is what the break is. That's what is then broken, shattered. That is the core belief in that movie that is that being exploded in that moment. And the healing happens, the bone breaks open, and the child is now free. And his whole world is turned upside down. Right side up, finally, actually. Because he realizes I wasn't the problem to begin with. Okay, people. That is an example of changing a core belief. When you change a fucking core belief, when you can finally see it, identify it, explode it by seeing how fucking insane it is. Once you do that, everything fucking changes. And the more core beliefs you explode, the more you jackhammer that cement that got poured over the bedrock of your soul that never needed cement. And that wet cement when you were a child got written in with messages. The more you go into those and jackhammer that off, so it's just your pure bedrock at the bottom, baby, everything motherfucking changes. You know a peace, you know a joy, you know a laughter that you have never been. Rob, any closing? Oh, the movie. Somebody asked, what was the movie, right? Good Will Hunting. Good Will Hunting. Classic. And that's the one that got them their first Oscar, right? Matt Damon and Ben Affleck for adapted screenplay, I think. No, not adapted screenplay. Original screenplay, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Brilliant actors, especially Matt Damon. Love him. And, of course, Robin Williams, the inimitable Robin Williams. Any final thoughts today, Rob?
A lot of good in-depth questions and answers today. I liked it.
Fantastico. One person asked over here on TikTok, asks, why call yourself a counselor when you're not? I actually am. I am what's known as a soul counselor or a spiritual counselor. I was a pastor for 15 years. I have an undergraduate and a master's degree in that field. I have been trained in multiple forms of counseling, including trauma counseling. I was the trauma chaplain at a level 1 trauma center, emergency room chaplain, and I've had a counseling practice for 30 years, including the last 10 in Manhattan. If you want my full bio, just go to badasscounseling.com. The full bio is there. All right, guys, this has been Super Duper. On behalf of KC over in the booth and Rob the Rocket sitting next to me, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by two-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.